minerals in Ukraine, investment opportunities in exploration and production. I feel very lucky today to be able to moderate this panel. My name is Roderick Cave, and I'm the Regional Director for Eastern Europe at CRU, a boutique mining and metals analysis firm. So first of all, I just want to say that this is a very timely presentation that we're looking at, and I think it's something that is at its time. So what Stephen Butler and the Strategy Council and National Resources Council has put together for us is a step-by-step walk through Ukraine and its mining potential. It has a very interesting discussion by the State Geological and Subsoil Survey, sort of looking at what the overall potential is. By Ukraine Invest delivering the insight into how the government and federal support is being organized, and the means that are being taken to attract investment and attract junior miners and majors as well. Then we have a bit of a diversion of how you might actually put in. So that's CMS looking at how you might purchase a mining asset or acquire a mining asset, the process, and that's something I think that is quite interesting, and something I don't know anything about right now, to be honest, and one of the reasons I'm really looking forward to the presentation. And then we step aside, we move away from government and systems, and we start looking at concrete examples in the commercial sector. A jolt to show why this is so interesting, looking at the metal shortages that we can expect and the green energy transition that we're currently going through around the world. They're looking at lithium as a case study, but that really, I think, underscores why this is an interesting topic and why it's the moment for mining in Ukraine, because as a secure source of supply for materials for Europe in the past and in the future, I believe it shows itself to be very well positioned despite internal strife that it's experienced in the past years. The domestic producers, I think, in steel and iron ore have shown that they're capable of continuing to supply their markets. And then we'll then do a roundup of some of the successful and up and coming mining companies. So we have a look at titanium. Iron ore in black iron is a very interesting company, and I think a fantastic example of what a junior miner can do in the country. And then I mentioned Belta in titanium, but also Avalon Gold, which is more of a polymetallic project, sort of shows you what type of project we can probably expect to see a lot more moving forward. So that's the overall structure of the talk today, and I think it really captures in its entirety what is the potential and what we can do in the mining sector in Ukraine. So the first speaker I'd like to invite is Roman Apimak. He's from the State Geological and Subsoil Survey of Ukraine. He's going to talk more about, I believe, licenses and auctions, but also the potential and the current status of the Geological Survey. Roman, you're online now? I can see you.
I'm here. Hi.
Hi. It's good. It's good to have you joining the discussion. Do you mind if I just hand it off to you? Do you have a presentation ready, or would you rather just talk through the points? I think I saw you speaking earlier last week on.
I will load up the presentation by myself.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think last week you were speaking at the development of extractive industries in Ukraine, and I found that very interesting. All right, there we are.
Thanks. We can start? Maybe start? Yeah, okay.
Please go ahead.
So hello everyone. Thank you, Steven, to put us all together. Actually, I'm coming up just from another event with a common trade agreement, common trade event with the Austrian Trade Commercial Chamber. A couple of days ago, we participated in another event with northern part of America. And right now we are happy to welcome everyone in London and in other part of the world online. unfortunately. So let's start from, I propose to dive actually today for exploration and production industry of Ukraine regarding the particularly critical raw materials, what actually Ukraine is ready to propose right now, and what we are going to do in upcoming months. As you probably know, security of supply of critical raw material is vital for modern innovative technology, both in Ukraine as well as for the EU. There is a large untapped potential for building strategic, mutually beneficial partnership. Regarding that, Ukraine seems a natural partner for the EU, particularly due to a couple of reasons. One of them is a strong political and economic tie supported by the existing comprehensive agreements, as the association agreements, free trade agreement, and another. And the second reason actually is the Ukraine obtains impressive reserves of critical raw materials that are in high demand in the EU, and we have another great benefit is that the close geographic location of our country and the EU. So we believe that the development of strategic partnership between Ukraine and the EU and another country on critical raw materials is considered as a way of strengthening the EU critical mineral supply chain resilience and diversifying the sourcing of material essential for meeting the ambitious Green Deal. Actually, that is why we have prepared the investment atlas. This is a new product where everyone can find different proposals online. Currently, regarding the critical raw materials, the investment atlas contains 30 assets of critical minerals. Among them is lithium, titanium, rare earths, non-ferrous metals, as well as gold and other. Every potential investors can get legacy geological data online, so it's free and simple to access. And also any potential investors is free to participate in electronic online concession auctions. Another option actually to cooperate with Ukraine is to get in contact with the current license holders. As a list of existing license in critical raw materials is in the back of the presentation. So let's start. I would like to briefly describe the list of these critical raw materials proposals. The first one is lithium. So Ukraine possesses actually one of the largest lithium deposits in Europe. We propose the three actually proposals are open for auctions right now. One of them is Donetsk region, the another in Kirovograd region and Zaporizhia region. You know that lithium is in a highly demand right now, in a trend, let's say. So it's used widely for the electronic cars, the electricity storages, and to produce another devices, electronic devices. So in terms of the additional information about these blocks, it's you need just to click on the square, and you will see the additional information in English. So the location of these assets looks as this one. So on the map right now, so you can see the proposed for auction, proposed blocks for auction, as well as the current licenses. So the another raw material is titanium. If Ukraine still does not produce actual lithium, but titanium, Ukraine is producing a big amount actually. So we are leading in terms of Ukraine is a leading country in terms of the reserves of titanium and regarding the volume of production. So 27 discoveries fields and more than 30 promising areas have been explored right now. And actually, we have already opened 7 proposals. One of them has been recently sold for electronic auction for 1.8 million. So basically, all of these proposals is for the exploration and pilot development production. So we propose the license for 5 years. There is a huge acreages, by the way. So the next, you can see how it's look like on the map actually. So massively, you can see that there is a production of and deposits of titanium across Ukraine. Sorry. So the next mineral actually it's non-ferrous raw materials, so nickel, cobalt, chrome, and another copper, molybdenum. We propose five assets. One of them has been sold just recently, again 2 months ago, for almost around $700,000 for exploration. So the map looks, the map is here actually. The next one, the next block is rare earth metals and graphite. The graphite license has been sold to just half a month ago for the Turkish company bought it. And there is another blocks for rare earth metal. So it's look like that. The existing licenses and proposals for auction mapped here. The gold. So the next one. As you know, the Avelana Gold is participant of this event, and this company is actually the single one who produced a tiny volume of gold. So we welcome this company with that fact, actually, and we wish them good luck. So 5 blocks are proposed for exploration as well as for the production of gold across Ukraine. One of the license has been sold at the end of last year for, again, a Turkish company bought it. Here we go. So there's a bunch of the different level details information in Ukrainian and legacy data in Russian. The card looks like, the map looks like that. The next one is oil and gas. So we spent a lot of time, and we believe that for Ukraine, it's not like a typical critical raw material, but for Ukraine, we decided that this is one of the strategic elements. So as you know, Ukraine is a leading country in terms of the production of natural gas in Europe. So we sold last year 2 concession licenses on electronic auction. We also, Ukrainian government signed 8 production sharing agreements for acreage for over 10,000 square kilometers. And we're also moving in the direction to starting to explore the offshore Black Sea deposits. This year, we are continuing to sign another 3 production sharing agreements. We are on the track right now to finalize this process. And we also announced a couple of new concession license auctions. here we go. One of the license has been sold just this month for $4.3 million US. The another auction is actually upcoming very soon. So it's also I just draw your attention on already signed PSA or LESCAM license. So it was signed by the Chevron and Ukrainian government 7 years ago, but Chevron dropped the agreement, and currently actually another part of this agreement, national company Nadra of Ukraine, is open for cooperation and is looking for the partner to explore this huge acreage, 6.3 thousand square kilometers, with all of the benefits of this type of cooperation. I mean, production sharing agreement. So more detailed information you can find clicking on this place. So the another 3 licenses. So we propose even more licenses right now. We just described let's say the 50% of them in terms of oil and gas. 2 weeks ago, we also succeed to open the virtual data room. So there is more than almost 300 books, geological legacy reports about these critical raw materials from the Soviet time, from the Ukrainian geological, Ukraine time actually. So currently all of them are open and you can use it online and make your own research and assumptions. Here we go, how actually looks like the electronic auction procedure. It's pretty simple and again, relatively short in terms of the time. So we like to compare it with eBay system. So everything is online. You can participate just sitting near your laptop and make the bidding using these 3 steps. So after the highest bid actually is decided through the highest price, which is proposed by the participant. So finally, the contact is there. We also participate closely with the Ukrainian Invest. So the state government agency is responsible for attracting the investors in Ukraine. So, and also there is a list of the contact from state-owned geological enterprises, which are actually collect the historical memory of bunch of these blocks. As I mentioned, the list of the license holders is there. You can find additional information about them on their website, and a little bit more about us. You can find following these QR codes. Thank you so much. Actually, I'm ready to be more specific responding on your questions, and we are welcome to see foreign investors, and we are welcome to cooperate with the foreign investors in elaboration, exploring Ukrainian subsoil and exploring particularly raw materials. We understand that we need a close cooperation with the technical investors. I mean, strategic investors with the high technical capability. Thank you so much.
That was really interesting. I have to say, I hadn't expected the system to be so automated and so much data to be available. I suppose the data room isn't sort of overwhelmingly populated, but still the fact that you're making it all publicly available, I think, is quite a credit to you, and the system seems to be quite well thought out. Can I ask 2 questions, if you don't mind, just that have occurred to me?
Sure, go on.
Okay, well, the first one, I noticed that other than the gas projects, that the mineral projects were quite affordable. I mean, the licenses were about, I think, 150,000, 200,000. They seem to be at reasonable levels. Can I infer from that that at some point after the exploration license is run down, that there's an extra fee to convert it into production, or how does the license go from being an exploration license to being a production license if someone were to wish to take it into production? Is it?
Okay, got it. Yeah,
Yeah.
got it. I can take it. So in terms of the oil and gas, so everything is pretty easy because according to Ukrainian legislation, the investors will get the combined exploration and production license at least for 20 years. So there is no special procedure from switching from one time to another. So in terms of the another type of licenses, so if there is no proved reserves, so usually we give the exploration license with pilot production, so at least for 5 years, and then the investors or license holders will have the priority rights to switch to production without no auction and without no special procedure. At least, I mean, that what license holders will be mandated to provide is environment impact assessment on that stage, and shows that the technology and the, and the plan actually will be honor the environment and secure the environment ecological issues. So that's it. And currently, actually, there is an important bill in the parliament, so legal initiative to introduce just a combined license for all type of the mineral resources. So just a direct one license from 3 to 20 years, depends on the type of the critical minerals, types of the minerals, sorry.
Sort of filtering depending on the strategic importance of the minerals that will determine to an extent what the license form takes. So I don't know what's a highly strategic mineral for Ukraine. Is there an example of something that people should be a bit more careful about? I mean, I think in what was it in Russia, Sukhoi Log was a strategic reserve. So a lot of people put money in this gold project that was gigantic, but that lost it because it turned out it was strategic and they couldn't develop it. And I've seen the same thing in Kazakhstan as well. Is there something? Are there reserves that people should be a bit more informed about that would be considered strategic materials for Ukraine? Perhaps rare earths or uranium?
Not really so far. So currently, doesn't determine it on the level of law. So we propose to introduce in a legislation such definitions and define what is the strategic and critical minerals. But in short, so we understand the strategic for us is that where we have actually the reserves in Ukraine is massive, right? So, and we feel the dependence, especially import dependence from another countries. So, and we understand that the reserves is there. We need just to develop it to cover our demand, right? And to cut the import dependence. And in terms of the critical, so it's not so obvious, let's say. So critical, it can be also if we have the reserves and we understand that, for example, the European Union or the US need, or let's say in the world, there is a trend for some kind of critical raw materials. So, and we have such a reserves in Ukraine, so we are ready to determine it as a critical and just trying to invite and attract more investors to elaborate it. So no specific requirements is there. Do not hear you. Sorry. Roderick, you need to, yeah.
That was going to happen sooner or later, wasn't it? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think you can have a Zoom call where someone's not just moving their lips and there's no sound coming out. It's practically a requirement for the genre. So I wanted to say I was very impressed with the auction site you set up, and I'd like to spend more time looking at it to understand how you're doing it. But one of the things I want to ask for right away is given the ease at which I can use your auction facility and the amount of data you have in place, is there a reason why there's so few so far participants? I think of what you were showing, 2 were sort of domestic projects and 2 were Turkish. Has there been a sort of a renewed Turkish interest in Ukraine? And is there a reason why we haven't seen more interest from Western investors, or are we just starting out? It's just this early days. Is this the beginning? I'm just curious. It seems that your licenses are affordable. They seem to be sort of well placed. I know there's probably some political risk around Ukraine to a certain extent, but as we've discussed, I think the Ukrainian miners have consistently been able to pull through in the most difficult of circumstances. What do you think will be the next step? Do you think you'll see auctions with more Western participation? You were mentioning London. Are you bringing it to a wider investing public? Are you cooperating with banks? How are you getting more information out there?
Actually, the reason why is not so many investors, foreign investors, in this procedure, that the electronic auction before the electronic auction, which was introduced in the middle of 2019. So it were a bunch of the different obstacles to participate in the auction. So it was like ancient, with a hammer and different requirements which you need to meet, actually. So currently it's totally another approach. So, and we propose more and more lots. We propose more and more proposals on electronic auction. For your understanding, last year we saw 50 proposals, 50 blocks. And this year, during the first quarter of this year, we already proposed 100 proposals. So it's a huge, right now it's a huge demand. We understand the people are believing in this procedure. They saw that it works. It's actually the electronic auction, it's transparent and doable for everyone. So, and there is even the rule when the foreign companies can directly participate in this auction, will even not open the Ukrainian entity, not registered in Ukraine. So they will do it after, but before the auction, there is an option to participate directly from abroad. So we believe that without such barriers, which was in the past, of course, and with a success story, with a success track in the past 2 years, we can reach a good result in the future. And of course, 2020, it was a little bit messy because of the COVID and all of this, all of these things. So we started proposing critical minerals, I believe 1 year ago. So it was not promoted well. I think currently we use totally another approach. So as you can see, we show the materials, we translate it in English. We create the virtual data room. Everything is open and we update this material and put it on our website, so we can download it for free. If you need any additional information, we are open to be contacted and be more specific to find the answers, actually. So to help the investors to participate. So on electronic auction, one company from Slovak, I believe, and one company from Turkish participate a couple of times in the electronic auction. Probably so far only from Slovakia and Turkey company participate in electronic auction. But again, we are welcome to see new company, and I believe that we will do it this year.
Pressing you so much on that, I just think it's really important that people think that they can sign up, look at the licenses, and know that there's a realistic chance that they can bid and win on an auction. It's something that I think would really set you apart, and is important for people that want to seriously look at it as a jurisdiction. I'm going to have to round out our discussion now, and I apologize if I've taken up so much time, but I do think this is an important point, that this is a system, it works, it's made to be easy to invest in and to be accessible. And that leads us to our next speaker. So I want to thank you very much and introduce Sergey Sivkat. He is the representative of Ukraine Invest and is executive director, Government Investment Promotion Office. So Sergey, if you're online, I think it's a natural handoff to you. So we've seen this really good program, a lot of good potential. I think that Roman has uncovered. It should seem accessible to a serious investor or a serious junior minor or major interesting in coming into Ukraine. And I think then the question is what sort of guarantees do I have? So I found a good asset. I'd like to develop it. I know I'm going to have problems in a new jurisdiction. I'm going to need help navigating it. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about the programs that Ukraine Invest has developed to help someone come in and not only bid on and win on an asset, but then take it into its exploration phase and hopefully further.
Thank you, Roderick. Thank you very much. I would like to comment briefly on Roman's speech as well. I can confirm that the interest is growing to Ukraine, and when we talk about auctions of state geology and subsoil survey, this is about investors' word of mouth as well, because when they see that auctions are transparent, when they see activities of the agency are predictable, then more people are coming to Ukraine. And this is what is happening right now. So the activity is picking up thanks to Roman and his team. And we are that one-stop shop governmental service, that office that will be given extra advice and extra support for all those that have won the auction, but then they need to navigate through state system at central level, at local level. And we are here to support businesses in Ukraine. And also, one small comment to Roman's presentation is that when there are at least 24 big deposits and locations that will be put to auctions, and provided that all of them will be sold effectively, all those locations can bring in investments up to $10 billion into Ukraine. So the amount is huge. I can see some investors online today, and I hope that their positive example, and I hope that the positive example will be achieved soon, will be again that extra piece of word of mouth, for all other investors to come from throughout the world, starting with juniors and then going to major ones and coming to Ukraine. So if I may ask you to load up our presentation, do you have it? I've been told that organizers have it, because I'm on the road right now. I'm not in the office. I'm in between Kiev and Kherson on a business trip. So for me, I'm having quite difficulty to do that from my car. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, you have it. So I will speak about Ukraine Invest, some macroeconomic figures, and then programs, as you said, also about updates of Ukrainian legislation that may be useful for and will be useful for international investment community. Can I have next slide, please? Thank you very much. So you can see some macroeconomics here. Well, as you know, Ukraine is the biggest European country by area. Our exports last year, 49 billion, imports for 54 billion. International reserves as of the latest information are 27 billion US dollars. And VAT and income tax and other figures are quite comparable to European countries. Can I have next slide, please? Thank you. So what has happened in Ukraine last year? We had some significant achievements, and I will speak about one of them, in addition to beginning of land reform, decentralization, and other important changes that took place in Ukraine. On 17th of December 2020, a presidential law on investment incentives has been passed in second reading in Parliament of Ukraine. And then it has been signed by the president on 10th of February. Now this law has been enacted, and government is working on secondary legislation in order to provide proper, transparent, and again predictable procedure for all investors to make application and make a good use of provisions of this law. This has never been happening in Ukraine before. The state of Ukraine never provided any support for investment projects. So again, this is a real breakthrough in investment regulatory policy in Ukraine. So what is this law about? This is about state support that can be provided in various forms. We are talking about soft incentives for investments in the form of support to connect while connecting to grids, tax relief, custom duties relief, building of infrastructure facilities, land lease at special price, and other soft incentives. So this state support will be provided in amount of up to 30% of investment made. The minimum investment that is required in order to fall within definitions of this law is 20 million euros that need to be invested within 5 years' time. At the same time, state will provide long-term obligations of up to 15 years, and all conditions will be stipulated in a special investment agreement that will be signed between government of Ukraine and investor. So this law is really about responsibility. It's about responsibility of investor before state, because the investor will clearly say how much he will invest in what projects and what is his business plan, feasibility study. And at the same time, this is what we were expecting for a long time. It's about long-term obligations on behalf of state of Ukraine, because as I said, they will be clearly stated there and they will last for up to 15 years. Sectors of economy that are covered by this law are quite vast, starting with processing, logistics, transportation, waste management, healthcare, education, culture. But for the purpose of our today's event, it's very important to mention that mining and extraction are also covered by the law, with need with a need not only to extract raw materials, but also to enrich them in Ukraine or process them in Ukraine. So with this additional activity, Ukraine Invest has been authorized by government of Ukraine to be that institution in accordance to the law that will be guiding investors throughout the process of application procedure, helping them to create feasibility study, not to draft the feasibility study, but to explain what kind of criteria will be required by state of Ukraine in order to apply for the state support. We will also be making connections with central local authorities, with relevant businesses, because the law provides for an opportunity for Ukrainian and foreign investors to apply. So there is a possibility of creation of joint ventures for the sake of implementation of effective investment projects in Ukraine. Investor will also need to create at least 80 working places within 5 years time, within duration of this investment project. Can I please have next slide? So Ukraine Invest, as I said, we will be guiding you through the process. We will be helping you out. When investor will be ready to submit application, it will be submitted to the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine. Ministry of Economy of Ukraine will have then up to 2 months to assess this application and to give 3 possible answers. And the answer yes means that then this application will be sent to Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, and they will have then up to 30 days to decide on signing of this investment agreement between state of Ukraine and investor. Provided that there will be some need to develop projects and make some additions to it, Ministry of Economy will advise what else is required in order to pass their kind of positive resolution. And then there will be maybe some cases when application may be refused. But if you apply to Ukraine Invest, we will be making best effort in order to make your application successful at first round. In addition to that, even if you do not fall under definitions of this law, Ukraine Invest is always open to all investors, and we provide full service for investors, starting with legal advice, economic advice, financial advice, introduction to authorities in Ukraine, making your permissions process easier, obtaining licenses, and in case if any investors have any troubles with bureaucracy or any other issues, then we also support you with our troubleshooting team. So we are always open to cooperation. Can I have please next slide? Also, among our activities now, we are more active in the field of development of regulatory policy, because we always listen to latest needs of investors, and then we communicate them to relevant MPs or to government officials in order to make Ukraine more comfortable for doing business. Can I have next slide, please? You can see some major investors that already operate in Ukraine. You will have it on the screen. We're talking about big companies, starting like Turkcell, ArcelorMittal, Metra, and other ones. But at the moment, we are also very much interested in development of investment activities in SME sector. We are working on different concepts. One of them is very important for Ukraine. It's industrial relocation from throughout the world to Ukraine, because we aim to become manufacturing hub for European countries, for UK as well, and for all other countries that are interested in cooperation with our country. Can I have next slide, please? We have our pipeline of investment projects. At the moment, we have 32 investment projects in it. The total amount of those projects is about $5 billion. Next slide. Also, I would like to invite you to have a look at our Ukraine Invest Guide. This is online analytical tool that has been created by Ukraine Invest. It's being updated constantly on quarterly and monthly and annual basis. It consists of over 300 pages about regulatory policy, overview of real sectors of economy, and specific investment projects that are ready to be presented to investment community. You can scan this QR code or just Google Ukraine Invest Guide, and then you will be taken to our website with this analytical material. Next slide, please. And here you can see our contacts. Please do get in touch with us. We are always open. We are happy to see you in Ukraine and provide you support from the moment of your investment idea arises to the moment of starting operations and throughout your operations in Ukraine. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Interesting presentation, Sergey. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure there's a lot of questions, but if anyone wants to put them in the chat, please feel free, or we're probably a small enough group that you could unmute and ask. But if I might, could I ask you a question just to start it off? It's okay, good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So what I was wondering is very often, when you look at people that want to develop investment in mining, and I've seen this in quite a few jurisdictions, the instinct is to say, would we really like a major to show up? Wouldn't it be great if a top 5 miner, a bit like Oyu Tolgoi, appeared in my backyard and started developing a $1 billion asset? And in most cases, you don't have an Oyu Tolgoi to begin with. It has to be explored. And in essence, you need to attract really, really small fish to start with. So before you get the whale, you need the plankton, and the plankton feed the fish, and so on in an ecosystem of mine development. And when I look at the program, what I don't understand is where does a junior go to for help? If I'm a junior miner and I've bought a license online for $200,000, and I go back to Toronto or wherever, London possibly, but probably Toronto, and I'm trying to raise a few million so I can do some early development work. I don't have 20 million euros. It's just not there yet. And I also don't have potential to hire 80 people. That might be 5 years down the road or longer. But I'm probably, in the aggregate, a lot of junior miners are your most important customers, because if you want to have, the giant mine assets being developed 5 to 10 years from now, then you need to have the juniors being active today. what do I do if I'm an ambitious junior miner? I really like the look of a project. Feldspar is just my thing, and I finally found the greatest Feldspar project, I think with a gold credit. I can't remember. I saw that one flash up. I know I'm not going to be 20 million. Can you still help me? And how do I go about doing that?
Yeah, this is what I mentioned during my presentation, that we provide services to all investors, not only those that fall within definition of this presidential law. If you are a junior miner and you won the auction and you bought this license, you always can come to us and we will guide you through the process. Ukraine is ready to work with investors. There are some issues that arise. It's a natural process. It's a process of evolution. Going from market planned economy to free market economy. It takes time, but we are at a different stage now. So all those junior miners that want to apply and get license in Ukraine, they can come to us at any point of time, and we will provide full support to them. I also think that those junior miners, they should have some program of state support as well. And we need to think in Ukraine, and we do think about that, what can be created in order to support them as well. Because we need to bring to Ukraine all types and sizes of investors there in order to make economic development more widespread.
My experience with junior miners is you're an easy target. I don't have experience as a junior miner in Ukraine, but in the early 90s I was working for a couple of companies in Kazakhstan. Actually, it was late 90s. What am I saying? Late 90s. I'm not that old. And you were just, everybody under the sun would come after you. It would be, the fire department, the draft board, the people you paid your electricity bill to, your neighbors. And what you didn't really need so much like a big investment program. You just needed an umbrella so that people couldn't come and take a swing at you. Now, I think Ukraine's a lot better than Kazakhstan in the late 90s, and Kazakhstan's a lot better than Kazakhstan in the late 90s. I think it's also a very interesting jurisdiction. But I think some of the issues are the same. If you're a small company and you find something good and you develop it, it's really difficult to hold on to it without proper state support, title, property rights, and a legal system that's going to have your back. And I know that's still a bit in flux, but I've seen a lot of progress in the past couple of years around the Ukrainian legal system, and I can just say, encourage you, keep that up and make sure you have a legal system that works for the people, because it will feed the entire economy.
We do see still, of course, we still see issues that are happening and we're trying to resolve them. As I said, we have very strong troubleshooting practice in Ukraine Invest. Only last year, we helped to unlock FDIs in total amount of $638 million US. Your question kind of has answer to it as well, because you said that Ukraine is developing and we're moving in the right way. But again, this is about evolution. It takes some time. We need to speed things up though, and I agree here. But we have some good changes, like for example, creation of Bureau on Economic Security in Ukraine. So now I'm positive that there will be less kind of improper activities of some enforcement agencies at mid-level specifically, because this activity of prosecution for economic crimes, for investigation of economic crimes, will be consolidated in one agency instead of spread between different agencies in Ukraine. And it was a big kind of precondition for development of some improper activities of enforcement agencies. So this is what is happening already in Ukraine. So we are on the right track. This is about taking it forward, to next step. So not stopping at this stage, but going to the next one. And at the moment, I would advise every investor, big, small, medium, come to Ukraine Invest when you want to apply. We'll explain to you all changes that are taking place in Ukraine, because sometimes bad news, unfortunately, they spread much quicker throughout the world. But we do have some good news. Very good news. And come to us and we will tell you how to do business in Ukraine. I know that I can see Andriy Smolin on call, for example, and other investors that already operate in Ukraine, I'll be glad to to listen what they will be talking as well. But one of the things that we discussed with Andrei, for example, was about disclosing information about deposits in Ukraine, because some of the information is still kind of on the secret file. So this is already happening. For example, did you know that our National Security Council has made a resolution that will open this information to public? So things that were only in kind of discussed at roundtables, they're happening now. Bear with Ukraine, and we will show some good results soon.
Very good answer. And I think what's important to hear is that people know that whether it's you or Roman, that you're aware these are potential problems and you can be approached and help find a solution.
Absolutely.
That they're not on their own. And that I think, I mean, I'm not going to call anyone out, but I would assume that anybody that's in the mining sector has run into their fair share of, shall we call them, administrative problems, because that's the same everywhere. I mean, if you're in Quebec, you may have administrative issues, we could call it, or social license is another term that could be used. So that's very, I think, very important. And I think now if I was listening and I'd just seen Ukraine for the first time, I'd be very excited by what you're saying, because I know I have a friend in Sergey. I know that Roman's got all the data and the projects lined up for me. Now I just need to ask myself, how can I get my hands on some of these Ukrainian mining assets? And I think our next speaker, Vitaly Radchenko of CMS, is going to explain that to us. So thank you very much, Sergey.
Roderick, if I can excuse myself, because I need to go back on the road. I'm on the trip. I need to, travel another 5 hours. So if I may excuse them, and I will answer any questions that you may have in writing as well after this event. But if you allow me to continue the journey, I'll be.
Yeah, no, let me put, I think everybody's very, very thankful and grateful that you were able to make the time in the middle of your trip to pull off the road and participate. And you said that you're open to people with questions and you're ready to help. So that's all we could ask for.
I will send my email.
And people.
I will send my direct email in our common chat now, so everyone can take it. And please do get in touch with me and our team. We are ready to support you in Ukraine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roderick. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Vitaly's off, and Sergey's off. Vitaly is up next. So this Vitaly Radchenko of CMS. I understand that you're going to tell us how we can acquire a mining asset in Ukraine.
Yes.
After the previous two presentations, I'm quite excited to hear.
I'll try to explain. Do you see my slides now? Yeah. Okay. So about CMS, we are one of the top 5 largest law firms in the world, headquartered in London. We are pretty much everywhere, and in Ukraine we are for I think 14 years already, since 2007. So just briefly, you will get those slides after the event. I just compiled everything together, what Roman was talking about, what maybe Sergey was mentioning, and I just used the same handouts and materials of the State Geology Service, but provided the links that everybody would be able to then find the information and materials on. So what opportunities are there? Roman mentioned various licenses and assets are open for nomination and or actually up for sale already. You can check those on the website of the State Geology Service. It's provided below. Roman named all those minerals that are available. Again, the link is below. And this is how it looks on the website. You can see, for example, there's an acreage for lithium ores, maybe titanium as well. You can click each of those assets and then check out the additional information about it. Again, just various types of available assets on the website of the State Geology Service. So what are the types of how our clients come and check what's available and then acquire it? So there are a number of options, some more frequently used, others less frequently used. For example, Obviously, the number one type is just to go at the auction, buy a license that you like, or actually nominate the license before that, and then go to the auction to buy it. Because you can do that. If you have a particular area in Ukraine that you think is worth it, talk to Roman to submit an application to Roman's agency, and then Roman will be required to put it on an auction. But obviously, you having all the expertise and knowledge and about the area, you would be in a good driving seat to buy it. So the second option is to buy a company in Ukraine which is already owning the asset. Or create maybe a joint venture with it. The third option is privatization. And the less used options are farm-ins, kind of the Ukrainian type of the farm-in, a joint operating agreement, which is a contractual arrangement with the license holder, or a production sharing agreement. Now, production sharing agreements so far have been used only in relation to oil and gas. But provided there's an interest from the investor, the government can put a larger block for a production sharing agreement tender. It will also be a competitive process. So how do you go to the auction and buy the license? This is, again, from Roman slides, from the State Geology Service materials. This is the process. In general, you can nominate it, so you can initiate the license if it's already listed on the website. If you're interested in something, you can just submit an application, and then the State Geology Service will go and auction the asset in a few days. You can apply, you can buy the license at the auction, even if you are a non-resident, whether you are from Canada or UK or elsewhere in Europe and the world. You can take part in the auction by just registering on the website of the exchange, which is selling, which is the marketplace for selling those. This is the address of the marketplace.
Can I
yeah.
ask you a quick question? Just can you go back to the slide? I didn't want to interrupt Roman, but when I was looking at this, I don't understand the Prozorro sales. So when you look at auction to increase the starting price, repeated auction with 50% discount, auction to, what is that and how does that work? I don't, I mean, I'm not an expert in auction theory, but I don't really understand what that is.
So it's just the way how auctions are run in Ukraine. For example, the auction means that the highest bidder wins the license. So if you have 3 companies bidding for the same asset at the auction, applying for the same license, then whoever offering the highest price will win. But if there's nobody appearing for that particular auction, which was announced by the State Geology Service by Roman, then obviously the State Geology Service sees that there's no interest, and therefore it cuts the price for the asset. And in that way, we try to motivate for people to come. If they didn't like the price, if the issue was with the price, then this may resolve it, right? The next time the price will cut to 50%.
That makes sense. I didn't understand that right away.
Yeah, sure. No worries. So this is the website where you can take part in the auction. It's open for non-residents, and if you win the license, then you are required to create a branch in Ukraine for operations. So you can participate by your non-resident company, but then you need to create a local branch to actually carry out the operations, of course. The second option was to buy an existing license holder, and here I think all the companies know what the usual procedures apply. You know, the data rooms for geological data, you know, the legal due diligence, financial tax due diligence, structuring of the acquisition, obviously. Share purchase agreements we do under English law, so the U.S. law, any foreign law can be applied if the parties of the acquisition are non-residents, or at least one of them is a non-resident. Shareholders agreements are a little bit more tricky. So if you're owning an asset, for example, 50-50, then usually you would create a holding company in a jurisdiction where which fully appreciates the minority rights and all the concepts of the corporate law, like tag along, drag along rights, deadlock resolution procedures, because Ukrainian corporate law in that respect is not yet that developed, although we are trying to consume more and more knowledge from the common law jurisdictions. But still, the courts would like to see a shareholder agreement with respect to a Ukrainian company governed by Ukrainian law most of the time. So that's the reason for shareholders agreements are taking at the level higher.
Vitaly, is that really the norm? I mean, I think if I was entering into, I mean, I know the courts would like to see Ukrainian law, but I mean, I think I would probably go for English jurisdiction across the board if I could get it, just because I don't know what Ukrainian law means in its application. And the law is probably straightforward, but just precedent and enforcement are different things.
It's how the court practice goes these days, and also on the basis of the current provisions of the material legislation. And for that reason, obviously, if you're an investor, this is what we would recommend. Just take your shareholder agreement on the level higher, at the level of the holding company, make it in Cyprus, Netherlands, or UK or US, and then govern your shareholders' relations with your counterparties at that level. And then holding company then owns the target or asset holding company 100%. Then obviously you would be looking into cross-border loans and financing rules, because there are certain currency control notions applicable to those in Ukraine. Same with dividends. You have to know about the capital control rules, and obviously taxation. So I mean, nothing is new here. This is your basically 101 acquisition checklist, usually for any asset in any country.
Since we're on 101, with the geological data, what geological basis would it be developed on? Am I looking at JORC, or am I looking at sort of a domestic version of the geological code that's governing data?
It's usually it's just one regulation, a government regulation on the export of the geological data. Basically, most of it is freely exportable, transportable. Only state-owned and state secret type of the data may have some restrictions. But otherwise, privately held or owned data is fully exportable and transportable over the border. Then this is just a slide. Maybe I won't stop for a long time to explain. Just taxes, what you need to know about the Ukrainian tax system. Relatively low corporate profit tax. Then also employee taxes that the company withholds and pays on behalf of the employees. But there is obviously a social tax, which is still, I think, reasonable compared to European measures. But obviously, you need to keep in mind that not all of the spelled out direct taxes on the company are what you're paying, but some that are, for example, indirect is what you also need to pay attention to. Royalties, of course. Royalties vary depending on the mineral. You're looking at maybe 5 to 8% if we're talking about ores, if we're talking about metals. Third option was privatization, and here, for the time being, I think the biggest project that we are having is in the titanium industry, and this is what we call UMCC, which is United Mining and Chemical Company. And this is again, the teaser to this presentation is available at the link below. This is Ukraine's biggest, I think, not the only one, but the biggest producer of titanium ores. It's not the TiO2, but it's a raw ore that we produce in Ukraine. It's going to be put for sale this summer. hopefully this is what the Ukrainian government is aiming, and they consider it to be quite primassive. They say that there are already like 10 companies, local and foreign, at least 10 companies, local and foreign, that are interested. Again, it has quite some share of the global world supply. You can see that of ilmenite, it's 3.2% according to 2018 data, and rutile and zircon is 5.6 and 1.4 in general. It supplies, it already has supply routes to customers, and Ukrainian, basically, it produces about 400 kiloton of the titanium ore concentrates and exports it to 42 countries. And the customer base is provided below. The Ukrainian government just had the evaluation made of this company, and if I'm not mistaken, yeah, I will mention it a bit later. The current price is 3.7 billion hryvnias, which is slightly above 100 million euros. So this is the starting price for the asset. The fourth option, this was privatization, and you saw the route to privatization. Again, I don't want to spend much time on explaining it, but you're welcome to ask any question in that regard. The fourth option is a farm-in, a so-called joint operating or joint activity agreement. And in a sense, it's a sort of a joint venture, but only a contractual-based one. It's not a corporate vehicle. You probably know, Roderick, that in some countries, those work when you have a license holder, you have then an investor which comes and puts the money in and then takes out a share of the profit. So this is pretty much the same in Ukraine. It has a separate legal, it does not have a separate legal identity, but the tax identity it has. It is registered in the tax authority. One of the parties is appointed by the operator, and both parties can contribute and then extract the joint property and share profits between them. So this is in a nutshell a concept of the Ukrainian farm-in JOA arrangement. And the last option, it has not been used to the minerals yet, but if again the state can offer, if it sees the interest from the investor, it so far worked only for oil and gas, but it's a good, interesting structure. Probably you saw those in Kazakhstan, again, in relation to oil and gas. But it's an agreement for 50 years, whereby the state exclusively provides you with the block, quite a large one, because Ukrainian licenses are limited in their acreage from 500 square kilometers to basically 1,000 square kilometers. This is what the maximum acreage you would get on license basis. This vehicle can be used for much larger blocks. For oil and gas, we saw 3,000 to 5,000 square kilometers. So this is a vehicle or contractual vehicle for 50 years, up to 50 years, and it gives you the stability. So once you sign the PSA with the government, it will stay like that unless the parties both agree to change it. So all the legal terms and all the fiscal terms, which is important, like taxes, etc., will remain the same throughout the whole term of the agreement. It takes time to negotiate. So usually we spend probably half a year to year to negotiate with the government. But on the upside, you get protections, you get stability clauses, you get cost recovery mechanism, you get international arbitration, free export rights, etc. So quite an interesting tool that is used by developing countries if they want to attract big, those majors that you were talking about. And right now, Ukraine has signed recently a number of production sharing agreements with the local and international investors, but those are again for oil and gas. So in a nutshell, and this is just the mechanism of how a production sharing agreement works. In a nutshell, that's really it. This is just a quick overview of the most frequently used options by investors in the mineral and natural resources sectors. And I'll be more than happy to address any of your questions, whether right now or after the event. And obviously, this presentation will be sent by Stephen and the organizers after the today event.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Vitaly. That was really good. I have a much clearer picture now. Although I don't imagine being in a production agreement anytime soon. It certainly is a sort of full spectrum overview. I would ask you a lot of questions, but we're running out of time.
Okay.
And I think the best way to get questions answered is probably to hear about people who are on the ground developing assets right now, and they can comment about their experience and raise issues or corrections to some of what they've heard. So I think before we do that, we have actually one more framing presentation, and that's Gaius King of Fox Davies Capital, who's going to give us an overview on the global lithium market. So in a sense, we've been discussing the supply side. There's all these amazing projects and means to getting access to develop them. Why is this so interesting? Because we're expecting sort of probably an equally or more interesting movement on the demand side, that with the Green New Deal, the green energy transition. Frankly, we'll probably in the next 4 to 6 years, we'll start seeing a significant boom in demand beyond what we've started seeing now. And it should be quite considerable about the time that a mine you would start now would be coming into production. So I don't know if Gaius, you're here. It would be really interesting to get a view. I know you've chosen lithium, but I think it's a really good example to give an idea of where markets are potentially going, and you can extrapolate that a bit to copper, cobalt, and even specialty steels and so on. Is Gaius's presentation something we could put up now?
I'd appreciate that. Thanks, Roderick.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really looking forward to it.
I apologise for this. I should have put it on PowerPoint, but I've timed myself and hopefully I can get it done in 8 minutes if I fly through it quickly enough. Okay, the first diagram is on the lithium price as we know it. Obviously, lithium prices were suppressed for a decade after 1995 when excess lithium stocks were put on the market by the US nuclear weapons program, about 41,000 tonne of lithium hydroxide. Primary demand started to grow from 2007 onwards with the manufacture of lithium-ion batteries, which obviously required a supply response. After peaking in 2018, prices fell more than 50% on an annualized basis as growth in primary supply outstripped underlying demand. And obviously, in red there, prices have recently begun to recover. Below is the map of where lithium deposits occur in the world. The orange circles are pegmatite hard rock lithium deposits. The blue circles are lithium brine deposits, obviously in South America and in interior China. And the black circles in southern US and northern Mexico are not really written about, but they are primarily lithium clay deposits that could be potentially very, very large. If we could skip to figures 3 and 4, please. Okay, figures 3 and 4 are basically showing how resources are growing around the world. In 2013, resources were dominated by Chile and China. And obviously in 2020, they're more evenly located around the world, primarily because of exploration efforts over the past decade. Looking at figure 5, this is interesting. So as demand increased and we had good understanding of lithium geology, there is a classic supply response to increase in demand. And note that the reserved resources compilation in this diagram is not necessarily JORC or 43101 compliant, although they're all based on published resources, so the compilations are conservative and pretty accurate to reflect audited accumulations. Can I go to figure 6, please? So an interesting way to describe how much lithium we have in the world is that I've divided global reserves, not resources, reserves into current production. So on current reserves, we have roughly around about 221 years of reserves of lithium production compared with, let's say, 19 in zinc. And if we to include resources, we'd have in excess of 1,150 years of supply at current demand rates. However, it is disingenuous in many respects because it tells you nothing regarding supply and demand dynamics and also the economics behind the extraction. So if we look at lithium supply and we look at lithium production in 2013 versus 2020, obviously in 2013 it was dominated by Chile and Australia. And more recently, given a threefold output increase from Greenbushes in Australia, it's now dominated by Australia. But we don't expect this position to be static, and there'll be more production coming out in the near future from South America, in particular Argentina. Can we go to figure 9 and 10, please? So if we compare global lithium producers in 2012 versus 2020, this is the key to describe how this market works. So global lithium in 2012 was dominated by 4 producers and China. And we skip forward 8 years, and despite a 200% increase in global lithium production, the result of various mergers, in particular led by the Chinese, the lithium supply chain has continued to consolidate, and the existing oligopolistic market structure has remained. And so now we've basically got 3 main producers in China, and as of last week with the merger between Galaxy and Oricombe, is consolidating even further. If we go to global lithium production, the dramatic rise from 2015 onwards is the result of car-sized lithium-ion batteries, which entered production from 2008 to 2009, but didn't really impact overall demand initially. From initial financial investment decision to production, substantial nameplate capacity was obviously added, and it took on average 2.5 to 4 years construction time from starting it to actually production, which in mining development terms is very, very rapid. Could we jump to figure 12, please? Figure 12, we estimate that global lithium production will grow 100% over the next decade. And the reason why this is extremely conservative is that we only included electric vehicle growth, not any other segment. We've made numbers on that. And we note, however, that electric vehicle uptake is very difficult to forecast, and uptake is increasingly a political, non-economic narrative. And also it's very difficult to judge because the relative abundance of hybrids versus battery electric vehicles changes massively the underlying lithium demand. And just to point out that some experts 5 to 6 years ago are an order of magnitude out on their previous forecast to what actually occurred. Why is this important? Figures 13 and 14 are what we describe the bow wave effect. So the phrase bow wave effect is a pattern that additional productive capacity for any commodity, with the exception of gold, bears little or no relation to the underlying quantity of the resource base. And it's similar to what Matt will talk about later on with black iron and the iron ore market. The iron ore market, or iron ore resources, have literally hundreds and hundreds of years of resources in the ground, but that speaks nothing to who can produce and who can produce economically and supply. Existing infrastructure is critical, and it's no different in the lithium market. So what you have there is lithium hydroxide, lithium carbonate, and what plans were and what everyone thought was going to come on the market and what actually occurred. So we believe that no lithium entrants will supply to primary supply in the near future, and is the reason why lithium market has retained its oligopolistic structure and will consolidate even further going into the future. And at the bottom of the market a couple of years ago, excess capacity among existing brine producers, some operating at 60% of market nameplate capacity, will dissuade future debt markets from providing additional development. So that should protect the market and prices going forward into the future. Can we go to figures 15 and 16, please? Okay, 15 and 16, if you can see that, it's just an example. So in 2010, batteries only account for 18% of demand in lithium. Last year, the latest numbers has just come out, it's 71%. And battery demand is growing on average 37.6% compound annual growth over that decade period, compared with 13.2% for all other segments. And that's critical. All other segments in lithium are still growing. It's just that lithium demand is growing more quickly. If we go to figure 17, this tries to show it a little bit differently. So in 2010, 18% of the demand was batteries. We forecast in 2022 that 81% of all global lithium demand will be dominated by batteries. Initially, obviously, these lithium batteries earlier on were just disposable batteries with 1.5 to 1.7% volts. But by 2015, global battery demand driven by large, dense lithium-ion batteries for EVs was pushing things along. And that alone is growing at 22.6% per annum compound over the past decade. Can we go to the figures 18 and 19, please? So there's a lot of numbers behind this, which we haven't included, but this is a compilation of all electric vehicles sold globally and our forecast for this year coming up. And in that forecast, we only actually expect a 1.4% increase in the US. It looks like the US electric vehicle market has peaked temporarily. And on the right, we have compound annual growth rates and annual growth rates. I'd make the single point here. The reason why electric vehicles are so critical going forward is that a single Tesla S model using a 90 kilowatt per hour battery uses 63% lithium, 63 kilos of lithium carbonate. And that's equivalent to around about 13,000 mobile phones. So the future of lithium is all about electric vehicle and hybrid demand. And that's shown in the diagram below in figure 20. Diesel power plants are declining quickly in Europe. These are European numbers, I should say, not global. And I'm making the assumption that the world will follow Europe's example, which is a very dangerous assumption. I'd make the point here, though, that EU hybrid sales, a hybrid car uses a quarter amount of lithium that an electric vehicle does, have increased 700% over the last 6 years. By comparison, a battery electric vehicle has only increased 163% over the past 6 years. And that's despite all the state subsidies going to battery electric vehicles. In the last two diagrams, if we go to figure 21 and 22, please. This shows a total lithium ion revenue breakdown on 2020 and our forecast for 2030. And although electric vehicles are not yet the largest segment demand for lithium ion batteries, that is simply just a matter of time. And the whole lithium story is about electric vehicles. Thank you.
Guys, that's really interesting. I think lithium is not exactly the bellwether for the entire sort of metals sector. It is a really good illustration of the demand change in the face of electric vehicles and adoption of sort of a green energy system. And I think you wouldn't see something identical to that, but you'd see something similar across a number of metals, whether it's copper for windings and transmission, or rare earth metals for magnets, and other sort of grid battery options that are available in the many different architectures of batteries that they have, for whether it's Internet of Things or vehicles or so on. And that's not even touching on hydrogen and potential PGM impacts. So it's I mean, across the board, you have to think that if we're moving away from hydrocarbons into a world where renewable energy supplying our power, we need a very, very different infrastructure. I think that underscores it really well. Would you mind if I save questions to the end for this? Because I think we've got 3 more presentations.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
I did want to ask you about Jadar, because I've been told, well, having looked at the project, that could be 15-20% of the supply, but it didn't figure it all. So I almost like a fact check on that one for my own benefit. But we have 3 very interesting projects, all of which will benefit from the underlying forces that are driving the GEIS's forecast. So believe it or not, titanium, iron ore, and polymetallic deposit in Avellano gold will all benefit from these trends. And I'm hoping we can get individual representatives from the companies to speak to them. We'd agreed at the beginning it would be ladies first, and that Alina Romanova from Velta would talk about her project first as a representative from the commercial world. You've made it through.
Yes.
I'm not. We were supposed to be done in 90 minutes. Lynn, I apologize. We've gone a little bit over. I get a little bit too interested, I think, in these things, and I think the same with your project too. I really want to hear about it. So I'm not going anywhere, and I hope that everybody can stay to see all the projects. I don't know very much about your project, so I'm really interested to learn more.
Thank you, and good afternoon once again, everybody. I'm sharing my screen now, so you are able to see my presentation. So I'm Alina Romanova. I represent the PR and Strategy Development Department of Velta. Velta is Ukrainian privately owned mining company. We have over 10 years of experience in mining titanium feedstock. It's called ilmenite, and we are supporting it all around the world. Mainly our customers are the representatives of chemical and metallurgical industries. Those are the industries which are very demanding to the quality of titanium feedstock because they produce all the different range of high-tech products. Titanium, as it was already mentioned today, is one of critical minerals. It's recognized as critical in the US. It is protected by the presidential decrees. It's also in the European Union listed as one of critical minerals. And the reason for this is that domestic national security of those countries depend on their own resources of titanium. And when they don't have enough their own resources, they purchase titanium from different countries. In terms of US, unfortunately, it has to purchase titanium from foreign adversaries, unfriendly countries such as Russia and China. And Ukraine, in this regard, is a politically neutral country. So our titanium is a politically neutral titanium. As a company, we believe that our titanium is also the key material for the future. It's the construction material for the industries which have been developing since a long time, and also the newly emerging industries. We are not just miners. We started as a mining company, but we also opened our R&D center, which has successfully developed new technology. And this is what I will be talking about today mainly. So we were founded in 2007, and currently we hold 2% of titanium feedstock market share. Nowadays we have 5.6 million tons of reserves, which is roughly enough for the next 19 years. We supply it to customers in Europe, USA, and Asia. And our R&D centers have been working since 4 years. In this time, we have developed a so-called Velta-T process, the process for obtaining titanium powder and subsequently titanium goods, 3-4 times cheaper than the standard process. And we have successfully patented this process in 2020. And the second domestic patent we received this year for titanium alloys, also based on our process. Currently, we are developing a titanium cluster. So we have a production asset in the central Ukraine, in Kirovohrad region. We own there 2 deposits and 1 production facility, the plant for mining and processing of titanium feedstock. And nowadays, we are also designing another plant close, just in 15 kilometers. And that new plant will be the pilot plant for producing titanium powder and also titanium goods from our own feedstock and based on our own innovative technology, which makes the final goods and powder 3-4 times cheaper. So why do we believe in titanium so much? What is so special about that? First of all, it has properties which are really competitive compared to other metals. Titanium is strong and lightweight, so the ratio of its weight and strength, allows for creating much lighter spare parts for aviation industries, for automaking, and so on. It's 12 times harder and 6 times stronger than aluminum. So we are expecting that when we commercialize our new process and titanium becomes affordable to various industries, both traditional and emerging, we will bite off the part of aluminum market and also stainless steel market. Titanium is also resisting aggressive environments very well, and that's why it's often used in tanks which are transporting really aggressive chemicals. Titanium resists extreme temperatures. This feature is really important for household goods, household appliances, cookware, and so on. And also it is fully biocompatible, which makes it a perfect implant in the medical industry. So as I've told, titanium has been used in a number of traditional industries, such as the aerospace industry. One of the examples which you may have heard before is SpaceX. In medical industries, and the replaceable components of surgical implants may serve up to 20 years. In the defense industry, it's high demand for titanium due to the national security issue, but also it's used in armored plates, which is the personal protective equipment for soldiers, in aviation engines and airframes. And finally, in manufacturing industry, it's used in heavy industries as well as number of really different ones. We like, for example, telling that a number of mobile phones, cases, the gadgets in every household, which now have aluminum in them, will sooner or later have titanium. And
Mind if I just interject for 1 second?
Sure, yes.
Well, I just wanted to add a sort of a vote of confidence, I think, or at least a strong interest in this. My own personal experience with Dnipro or Dnipropetrovsk, as it used to be, was my university in Canada doing in the early 90s an exchange with the Department of Metallurgy, and realizing that they really were doing cutting edge science in Dnipropetrovsk in the early 90s, owing to the fact that it was the center of space technology, missile technology, and a lot of the basic science that was done there led the world. And I have a specific example. In 1996, I was in Moscow, and a scientist asked me to intervene in a negotiation he was doing. And I was talking with someone about nanotechnology without realizing it. They were telling me about these powders that melted at lower melting temperatures than normal. And I was trying to explain that's impossible. They must be charlatans. And it turns out, no, they were just nanoparticles that had a lower melting temperature. And there was this thing called surface I'd never heard of before. And I don't remember if that was Dnipropetrovsk, but it was from the former Soviet scientific structure. So I would take this quite seriously. I'd actually like to learn more about it and understand how you get the cost out of it and make it more applicable. Because I think, to be honest, as a Canadian hearing this, if I didn't have an engineering background, I'd probably hear this and think this sounds crazy. But based on the experience I've had over the years with metallurgy in the former Soviet Union, and particularly Dnipropetrovsk, I think this probably has some very strong legs to it. My other guess would be that you'll have a very good scientific solution, but you won't market it very well, because that's what happened with the nanotechnology. But that's another story. But anyways, thank you. I just want to say I would like to learn more about this, if there's some way to follow up on it.
Well, absolutely. First of all, our founder, and as I told, Velta is a privately owned company. It's founded by Dnipropetrovsk businessman. Now it's Dnipro, so it's a local person. And he also has a degree in metallurgy. So he is not just a businessman, he is professional metallurgy specialist. So our company really developed a new method which will make it all possible. And just in few slides, I will talk in more detail what exactly changed in our production method, which is allowing to reduce the cost so drastically of the cost of both titanium powder, which is still an intermediate raw material, as well as the final products. Because Velta started as just a mining company and supplier, exporter-oriented supplier, but our vision is to become a fully integrated company from mining our own titanium feedstock to producing the powder and producing the final goods. So moving ahead, here the upper three circles, you see this is the state of affairs nowadays, how the aluminum market, stainless steel market, and titanium market look like in numbers and in sizes compared to each other. And it's a huge difference. Titanium can really grow in application and get a bigger market share. Unfortunately, till now, until we have patented our technology and start commercializing it, the production was so expensive, so labor consuming. There is an old, high cost and outdated process called the Kroll process. It's also really damaging for the environment. But instead, the process which Velta has developed and which is changing the prices on the market, which is changing the metals market, which is creating this interruption in our usual understanding of how much aluminum and stainless steel we have. This is the Velta T process. We have currently 2 patents for it, and the big difference is that it's not just innovative, it's not just reducing the cost of titanium 3-4 times, it's also green. So it doesn't have any harmful waste, emissions, and it will really boost the demand for titanium worldwide. So here on the bottom, you may see how much titanium market is expected to grow. And I can tell you already now that demand for titanium is growing 4 to 6% every year, which is translating roughly to 20,000 tons. And our pilot plant, which will be based on our new technology, will be trying to satisfy part of this demand. The pilot plant which I'm talking about will have the capacity of 5,000 tons. And when you think that the market demand is growing by 20,000 tons every year, of course, we are not able to satisfy all. But what is beautiful about our project is that it's really easily scalable all around the world. So we just have to start. We just have to start in Ukraine to make it a really competitive country where this new technology was born, where it would be commercialized. And from there on, having Ukrainian own feedstock, which is a really big advantage, and having our own scientific base will really help us to start dominating the market, not just as company, but the country in general. This is our mission. I would like to tell briefly the story of aluminum, which some of you may know. It used to be worth more than gold when it was just first commercialized, because the prices were so high and the supply was so low, the process was really expensive. But then once the new production process was invented and it significantly reduced the cost of production, prices went up really drastically, the demand went up, and nowadays all of us know that aluminum is really, really affordable. We believe that this will happen also to titanium. And now, here is the comparison of the old process and our Velta T process. As I've mentioned before, our process doesn't generate any solid or liquid waste. It does not contain any chlor, which is polluting for the environment. It's 2 times faster and 3 to 4 times cheaper. And what we also like about it, it's generating high value added byproducts. I will describe a bit later which products are those, but by creating those products, we are able to reduce the price because we are also commercializing and selling those products, planning to commercialize and sell those products. And this is what will make us really competitive and really different. Not just Velta is working on different production process for titanium. For the past 30 years, there have been a number of countries all around the world. It's Japan, it's Great Britain, United States, South Korea, and Australia. It's private companies and universities and different institutions who are researching how to make the old process, which is really labor consuming and time consuming, using a lot of energy, how to cut it, to make it shorter, to make it more efficient, to reduce the price. All of these companies and institutions are on different stage of their progress. Velta is so far the only one who is on the stage of designing and launching its pilot plant. So we have proven that our technology can work efficiently, and we can receive bigger and bigger volumes of our own titanium powder and titanium goods.
Alina, I was going to ask, I think I'm going to be in big trouble if we go over 2 hours and we only have about 15, 20 minutes left for the other presentations, and there's 2 of them. Could we sum up by just saying what you're looking for in terms of how someone could participate? Are you looking for clients? Are you looking for investors? And maybe just give us a message how we can support you.
Yes, our marketing team is looking for investors because our 5,000 tons, which we are planning to produce of titanium powder, will be applied in chemical industry, in shipbuilding, in defense, medical items, and electronic equipment. You can also see that we'll have a lot of valuable byproducts, so they will also benefit many industries. And that's why our marketing team is working and finance team is working now on attracting both domestic and foreign investors. So if you can spread the word, that would be really helpful. As I have told, it will benefit Ukraine in general, because if Ukraine will be the country where it starts the new titanium cluster, starts the new technology and production, the world will know about it. It will impact the image of our country. It will improve our international relations with the US, Europe, and other countries around the world.
Really promising technology. I'd actually like to learn more about it. I've worked a lot in aluminum and steel, and something like this is very attractive for a number of reasons. So hopefully I can follow up afterwards, or you'll make the presentation available.
Sure, absolutely.
The other thing I would say is I wouldn't be close to the idea of licensing or partnering or working with other parties as well. I've very often seen really interesting projects in this part of the world stumble because people have this urge to keep it in-house. They don't want to share. And I understand why you would think that perhaps in your present environment, but there's very, very strong intellectual property laws in North America and Western Europe. They give you a lot of guarantees, and you can very confidently work with partners in developing a technology. And I wouldn't be shy about doing that.
I will just briefly add that in addition to the domestic patents, we have also filed to the USPTO, which is US Trademark and Patent Office, and we have a priority there. So we are also looking forward to have the US patents.
I'll be watching that. And to be honest, I think all of our remaining projects are very exciting. I really like Black Iron. I don't know if you've seen it, but thank you very much, Alina. We're going to move on to the other project. I don't know if you've seen Matt Simpson from Black Iron present before, but I think like yours, it's also a very interesting up and coming project. I think it's probably a lot further along commercially, and that it's a solid project with a clear runway to profitability and really good returns. And in fact, I took a little bit of a peek through the project PowerPoint before the presentation, and you almost wonder why it's at the valuation it is. I think if this project wasn't in Ukraine, it would be a multiple of what the value is. And I think while they're not here, I think Ferrexpo, a neighbor in the industry, has really shown that Ukraine can be a reliable supplier of pellet and produce a good product, and even in the worst of circumstances, make sure it gets to market. So I think there's a really interesting story here. Matt, are you ready to walk us through?
I am, Roderick. Thank you for that introduction.
Thank you.
So with that, iron ore prices are actually the highest price appreciating mainstream commodity over the past year. And oddly enough, it's being driven by COVID. It's governments all around the world starting to spend billions, if not in the case of the United States, trillions on major infrastructure projects, which require steel and therefore benefit black iron. So how is this all relevant to our company? Well, we're actually the top ranked undeveloped iron ore project in the world by two highly regarded market intelligence firms, one of them that Roderick works for. The bubble chart on the left is done by Wood Mackenzie, and you can see that our Chmielnicki iron ore project has the highest after-tax internal rate of return and one of the highest iron contents. And the bar chart on the right is done by CRU, which is the global cost curve for undeveloped projects. And you can see that we're not just first quartile, we are the lowest cost undeveloped project in the world. Now, why is that? How is that relevant to Ukraine? With iron ore being a bulk commodity, it's all about moving large volumes of material at low cost. It's proximity to rail, port, power, and skilled people that make or break the economics of your project. And when you look at any other development stage iron ore project out there in the world, one of the biggest issues is the proximity of the ore body to a railway or to a power line, where rail, to give you an idea, costs about 3 million of a kilometer. Power is at least $1 million a kilometer. So if you need to build even just 200 kilometers of infrastructure, you can easily spend over $500 million. Whereas in our case, because the government rail is only 2 kilometers away, power lines run beside the rail, we're able to phase the construction of our project. So we're going to start producing 4 million tons a year. It's going to cost us $452 million to build that project. But using very, very conservative long-term iron ore prices of only $62, and shockingly today the price has hit $190, so it's actually 3 times the level that we're showing in our presentation. But even using that number, it's 1/3, and using a pretty punitive discount rate of 10%, this project still throws off 1.9 billion net present value for a company that currently today has a market cap of about 120 million Canadian or 100 US. What's also interesting for investors that are really concerned with the whole ESG theme is we're going to be making a 68% magnetite pellet feed. So to put that in layman's terms, not only does that mean that we command a much higher price than that roughly $190 a ton figure that's being charged for 62% iron, but as important, we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in generating a ton of steel by about 30%, which is huge. Because steel is required for so many applications in our everyday life. It's how do we make it in a more sustainable, responsible manner? And the high iron content product is really where the market is moving towards. Our project is very significant for Ukraine. It's going to be about a $1.2 billion investment over the entire project life, which is about 17 years initially. It's going to create around 700 direct and about 2,000 indirect jobs and contribute about 2.2 billion to the economy. But I think even bigger picture, because we are a main board Toronto Stock Exchange listed company, this project's success really will become a bellwether to improve investor confidence for other projects in Ukraine. You know, to your point earlier, Roderick, about majors coming in, you need to see more junior companies like ourselves being successful to then pave the pathway for the larger companies to come through. This is what our project site looks today. It's kind of rolling grassy fields. If you squint at the top of the page, you'll see the power lines, and the rail is right in front of that. For the interest of time, I'll just keep moving forward. As mentioned again, the economics of the project are extremely strong under a wide range of pricing scenarios. With the phase build, we'll start with 4 million tons a year. And then 3 years after starting completion of the first phase, we'll then start construction on the second phase, which will add another 8 million tons to be operational by the 5th year. And then from there, we can even expand further to 10 million tons. We could add a pellet plant. There's lots of optionality with this project to create further upside for investors. So how does a company fund 450 million with a market cap of about 100 million? The key with iron ore is all about the offtake. And in our case, if you split the project between equity and debt financing, it means we need, just roughly speaking, around 200 million of equity, but 300 million of debt. On the equity side, we already have a term sheet signed for a $100 million US royalty. We also have 3 different construction companies, out of which we'll select one that's looking to put about 65 million in. And very soon we're going to announce our offtake partner, who will round out a large portion of the funding for construction on the equity side. On the debt side, what's kind of interesting with Ukraine right now is there's several European governments who are targeting to try to put money into Ukraine because it's such an important country strategically. So we already have expressions of interest from some major European banks for between 260 and 300 million of debt. And these are well-known, recognized banks that are already active in Ukraine. And we also have export credit guarantees from some international finance groups, again, from that part of the world. 260 million shares out basic right now, but 340 on a fully diluted basis for those interested to invest. Again, main board, Toronto Stock Exchange company. If you look at our enterprise value divided by contained reserves, and there's many different ways to look at an iron ore company, but just using that metric, we're valued at around 44 cents. And probably our best peer comp is London Stock Exchange traded Ferrexpo, which Roderick mentioned at the outset, and they traded around $5.44. Or you could look here in Canada, there's a iron ore producer called Champion that trades at around $8.80. So even though our share price has moved quite a bit over the past 5 months, it's really just the start of what's possible with this company. So why look at Black Iron? Why should people consider to invest now? Well, again, we're looking at the highest price appreciating mainstream commodity and the top ranked undeveloped project in the world that's on the brink of having all of its financing secured to bring this into production very quickly. So thank you everyone for your time.
It looks like a great project. I have to say I didn't work on the crew side of it when they took a look at it, but I wish I had. I think it came in through the banks and not through the local office. I had just one question, if I can, and that's I'm personally curious. Is DRI ever an option? I mean, if you look at the value chain impact of the iron ore, it has such a big effect on the emissions in steel that anything, carbon border tariffs or offsets, it doesn't even compare to the cost that it would be to put in something like DRI earlier in the process. Yet in the Ukraine, I understand it's difficult to get the funding for a capital project like that. Is that something you would consider? I mean, assuming there's local gas.
So I guess for people that aren't as into the sector as Roderick, you clearly have some deep knowledge. Direct reduction iron ore is a type of iron that's consumed primarily in the Middle East and by other steel producers that use electricity to make steel. So it's a much lower emission way to make steel. And for people that have heard of green hydrogen, which seems to be very topical lately, the only way that you can make steel with green hydrogen is if you actually have a direct reduction iron. And Black Iron is able to make that product. So our base product is a 68% magnetite pellet feed with a 4.5% silica, but with a modest about $35 million investment, and it adds about $2 per ton to our operating cost. We can make a 70% direct reduction iron with the silica plus alumina adding to around 1.8%, which would be an extremely attractive product for the Middle East and for anyone moving towards this green hydrogen wave.
I mean, I'm not saying next year, but given the time scale that these type of projects are developed on, it just seems like it's really well positioned to take advantage of that sort of trend. And I don't know exactly what the situation is with captive gas or if there's anything local, but I think at least several spots around the country have gas assets that I think are accessible. Anyways, I really wish you good luck on that, and I hope it goes well. And next time you approach the company, I hope I talk to you as well, because it would have been nice to be involved in it. The outside, I only learned about it by looking at your presentation, and it's a great story. And then just thanks again. I guess it leaves the last project, but I'm going to guess Avella is probably the most interesting project for people that came in and joined the presentation from the outset. If you're interested in investing in a mining asset in Ukraine, it's unlikely you're going to develop a unique titanium process or start a bulk commodity mine. More likely you would be looking at something like gold or a polymetallic reserve. So I think Andrei Smolin may be able to finish off all these presentations with a capstone presentation. And what does it actually look like when you start developing a mine in Ukraine? And I'd like to hear a lot more about Avelana, and hopefully you can walk us through it. Andrei?
Yes, Mazu, thank you very much for opportunity to join you. I will try to go through quickly. Yes, currently gold, everybody loves gold, but when we started almost 5 years ago in 2016, nobody likes any metal and any investment at all, and as well, nobody likes Ukraine. Nevertheless, as it happened in business, time changed. So we're enjoying currently the high price on the gold. But thank you for calling us not the gold project, but the polymetallic project, because it is the key idea of Avelana. So if you have a look at what we are in terms of reserves, you can see that there is two types of cut-off grades. Taking the current level, both of them are the 3% in zinc equivalent of 5% in zinc equivalent. They're both economic. That means that even as currently at the moment, we can looking forward for more than 20 years of production based on only one our mining license, that is Muzhevo license. We are developing two lines of business, that is production business and that is exploration business. We have an exploration Bergovo license that is an extension of the Muzhevo deposit, and completely new project Kvasovo deposit that is very much similar to the Baimara type of deposit that has been in production for 100 years in a nearby Romania. To keep it briefly about the size and about the figures, I would say that in gold equivalent, we would be above 1 million ounces. That is important flag for most investors. Nevertheless, as I told, we remain the polymetallic deposit, and at least 40% of our future cash flow would go from the other metals like silver, zinc, and lead. And as you could know, during all the new history of Ukraine, there has never any underground mining company was launched into the production, and no new metals have ever been produced. So we are going to be the first, not only in a production of gold, but in the production of other for metal, or at least concentrates, including silver, lead, and zinc. In terms of financials, briefly, these figures need to be updated because gold goes up, but approximately we are target to be a mid-sized company with about 100,000 millions in revenue and about 40 millions of EBITDA. Taking the advantages of the polymetallic deposit, we are quite balanced, and I'm always trying to recalculate our cash flow. And when gold was at the level of 1,200 and zinc was at the level of 300, and then when gold goes up and zinc went down, we almost kept the cash flow at the same level. Hopefully, at the current level, both zinc and gold at the very high level. So at the moment, we have all the possible licenses and permits, including the environmental card that allow us to be a production company in Ukraine right now. We decided to go all this painful way to understand that to understand on our small production that it is possible to do business and it is possible to produce in Ukraine. Speaking about our exploration potential from this figure, from this 3D model, you can see on the right side the Muzivo deposit, and all the points scattered is a Beregovo. So actually, the idea of the Avellana and why Avellana was created is in-depth understanding of the epithermal deposit, and we understood that the Muzivo is actually just the piece of the pie, and we are dealing with a much bigger deposit that was artificially divided into the Beregovo and Muzivo. So we are happy that the resources of and reserve of Muzivo at the moment at current price level keep us on the float, and we are capable to be in production for a very long time based only on the Muzivo deposit. But our big idea is to create a big company, maybe major company in the Western Ukraine, and to reach 1 million tons production somewhere in the future. But at the moment, we are on the very straight way towards the 500,000 gravity flotation plant. And the first stage on this path is build.
Elena? Looks like we had a bit of a web hiccup. Well, seeing as we're at 2 hours, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. It could be this is just the sign that we're supposed to wrap things up. What I would say, other than thanking all the speakers and everybody that's been patient enough to stick it out, that I think the 2-3 last presentations are the most important ones we've seen. It's really good that Ukraine is putting everything in place to develop a mining jurisdiction. So the first presentation, geological data, key. Having an auction process, key. Having appropriate legislation, of course. Ukraine invests supporting people, also very good. But at the end of the day, we need both of those projects to be successful. So I think it's, we really have to congratulate Matt and Andre, who isn't with us anymore, with their tenacity and the fact that they're sticking it out. And I would say the same actually for Velta as well, although I don't fully understand what part of the development process it's at. That what Ukraine will benefit the most from is successful mining projects. The successful mining projects will become the signal to the industry at large that we can do business here, that this is a place I can invest my money and get it back and maybe go somewhere else, or maybe invest it again in the same locale and double down like so many mining investors do and grow the next generations of projects and attract even more people to come in and build up a bigger capital reserve that's invested in the sector and all the associated industries that support it. So I would just like to conclude by saying I thought it was a fascinating set of presentations. We probably can't take questions as we're over 2 hours and I talk too much, but I think everybody here is doing a really, really important job for Ukraine, doing a really important job for the sector, given that we have such a deficit of materials for these critical sectors that we need to develop in a green energy economy. And my salute to all of the producers, to Velta, Black Iron, and Avellana. Please keep it up. The people on the call, I think, have all said they're here to help and do what they can, whether they're from the government or even crew. And I would hand it back to Stephen Butler if he'd like to wrap things up. Otherwise, unless someone urgently wants to put a question to one of the speakers or make a comment, we should probably wrap it up. I think 2 hours is about as much as is humanly bearable for a Zoom call. No one's raising their hands. So again, thank you very much. For me, it's been very interesting. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I felt like I learned a lot and even made some important notes. I'm going to check out that stock listing with BKI and the Toronto Stock Exchange. I'm going to look into titanium processing, and I may even poke around the auction site for Ukrainian mining licenses. I think there's definitely a lot to do here, some homework, and I look forward to maybe 4 or 6 months later seeing how much we've progressed. Thank you very, very much, everybody, and have a good rest of your day. Take care.